Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Intrepid. The stars outside looked calm and peaceful. His ship was doing regular patrol work near the Kepler Nebula. It was supposed to be a quiet day. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the communications array," said Lisa Parker from her station. She was the ship's communications officer and had been working with alien signals for 5 years. Jake turned to look at her. "What kind of strange?" Lisa pressed buttons on her control panel. Her face looked worried. "It's a distress signal, but not from any human ship. The language is completely different." "But sir, the translation computer is picking up some words." "Put it through the speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge filled with sounds that made everyone stop what they were doing. It was not just voices. There were sounds of explosions, screaming, and what sounded like weapons firing. Through all this noise, they could hear voices begging for help. Double quotes, "Please, ... Anyone who can hear this?" The translation computer worked slowly, but the words were clear enough. "Our world is dying. The Draconis Empire has come. They are killing everyone. Our children ... our families. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us." The message cut off suddenly. The bridge was completely quiet. Jake felt his heart beating fast. He had never heard anything like this before. The fear in those voices was real. These people, whoever they were in terrible danger. "Lisa, can you clean up that signal? I need to know more." Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. "I'm getting more of it, Captain. The signal is coming from a planet about 6 light years from here. The species calls themselves the Vellani. According to the database, they are peaceful. We made first contact with them 3 years ago." First Officer Kate Hughes stepped forward. She was a tough woman who had seen combat before. "Captain, what do we know about this Draconis Empire?" Chief Engineer Ben Torres spoke up from his station. "I've heard stories. They're bad news. They conquer planets and make slaves of everyone. They don't kill. They have a huge military force." Jake stood up and walked to the main screen. The image showed the area where the signal came from. It looked so peaceful from this distance, but he knew that somewhere out there, people were dying. "Lisa, can you get more of the message?" "Working on it, sir." Lisa's fingers moved quickly. Over her controls. "Got it. There's more." The speakers crackled to life again. This time the voice was clearer. It was someone trying to stay calm, but Jake could hear the panic underneath. "This is Elder Velkaran of the Vellani High Council. Our world is under attack. The Draconis forces landed 2 days ago. They have weapons we cannot fight. Our cities are burning. They are taking our people to their ships. We don't know why. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. Our defense systems are failing. We have maybe hours before they reach the deep cities where our children are hiding." The message continued with more details. The Vellani were being hunted like animals. Their peaceful society had no weapons to fight back. The Draconis were not just conquering them. They were taking the Vellani alive for some unknown purpose. Kate Hughes looked at Jake with fire in her eyes. "Captain, we have to do something." Ben Torres shook his head. "Kate, we can't. Earth's policy is clear. We don't get involved in alien wars. It's not our fight." "Not our fight?" Kate's voice was getting louder. "Did you hear what we just heard? Those people are being murdered, and we're just going to sit here?" Jake held up his hand to stop the argument. He was thinking hard. The rules were clear. Earth's Colonial Defense Force had strict orders about not getting involved in conflicts between alien species. But those voices, the fear and desperation in them, reminded him of something from Earth's history. "Lisa, how long ago was this message sent?" "Based on the signal strength and distance, about 18 hours ago, sir." Jake closed his eyes. 18 hours. The Valani might already be dead. Or worse, they might be slaves by now. "Captain," said Dr. Amy Collins over the intercom. She was the ship's science officer. "I need to speak with you. It's about the Valani. Come to the bridge, Doctor." Dr. Collins arrived quickly. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Captain, I studied the Valani during the first contact mission. They're not just peaceful. They're healers. Their biology is unique. They can heal injuries that would kill most other species. If the Draconis are taking them alive, ... She didn't need to finish. Everyone on the bridge understood. The Draconis were not just conquering the Valani. They wanted to use them. Jake looked at each member of his crew. He saw anger in their faces. He saw the same thing he was feeling. These were good people who could not stand by while others suffered. "Ben, what would happen if we reported this to Earth Command?" Ben thought for a moment. They would tell us to observe and report, maybe send a diplomatic message to the Draconis. But by the time all the paperwork was done, the Valani would be gone. And if we acted on our own? Court-martial, prison, the end of our careers. Jake walked back to his chair. He had a choice to make. Follow orders and let the Valani die, or break the rules and try to help them. He thought about his own family back on Earth. What would he want someone to do if they were in danger? What would he want aliens to do if Earth was under attack? The answer was clear. "Lisa, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them about the Valani distress call. Tell them we're investigating." "Yes, sir." "Kate, I want a full analysis of our weapons and defenses." "Ben, how fast can we get to the Valani homeworld?" Ben looked surprised. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Jake sat down and looked at the stars ahead. "I'm sure. We're going to help them." Kate smiled. "Finally, what are your orders, Captain?" "Set course for the Valani system. Maximum speed. And send a message to any human ships in the area. Tell them we might need help." As the Intrepid turned toward the Valani homeworld, Jake knew his life had just changed forever. He was about to break every rule in the book. But sometimes, he thought, the right thing to do was more important than following orders. The stars ahead looked different now. They were no longer peaceful. They were a path to a fight that might save an entire species or destroy his own career. Jake Morrison was ready for either outcome. The news traveled fast through human space. Within 12 hours of Captain Morrison's report, every human colony knew about the Valani distress call. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Admiral Sam Martinez sat in his office at Fleet Command. On Terra Prime, he had been a military man for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. His communication system was flooded with messages from across human space. "Admiral," said his aide, Lieutenant Bob Harris, "the President's office is calling. Also, the colonies are demanding action. New Chicago is organizing a protest fleet. The miners on Titan are offering their ships for military service." Sam rubbed his forehead. This was a nightmare. The rules were clear about not getting involved in alien wars. But the people were not listening to rules anymore. His screen lit up with a call from President Laura Adams. She looked tired, but her voice was strong. "Sam, what's the situation with this Valani crisis?" "Madam President, Captain Morrison reported a distress call from an alien species under attack. Our policy is to observe and report. But the people are not happy with that approach." "President." Adams was quiet for a moment. "Sam, I need you to understand something. I've been getting calls from every governor, every colony leader, every representative in Congress. They all want the same thing. They want us to help these aliens. Ma'am, the Galactic Council will not approve. If we act without permission, we could start a war with the Draconis Empire. And if we do nothing, we become the kind of people who let others die while we watch." The president's voice was firm. "Sam, I need all the information we have on the Draconis and the Vellani. I want to know what we're dealing with." Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Collins was working in her lab aboard the Intrepid. She was preparing a detailed report on everything she knew about the Vellani. The information was not good. The Vellani were a peaceful species that had never developed weapons. They lived in harmony with their environment and had advanced medical knowledge. Their ability to heal was not just skill. It was part of their biology. Their cells could regenerate damage in ways that seemed impossible. "Captain," she called. Morrison over the intercom. "I need to show you something important." Morrison arrived at her lab quickly. Dr. Collins had charts and images spread across her workspace. "Captain, the Vellani are not just healers. They're living medical miracles. Their blood contains compounds that can heal almost any injury. Their organs can regenerate completely. If the Draconis have discovered this ... Morrison felt sick. They're harvesting them. That's my fear. The Draconis are warriors. They value strength above everything else. If they found a way to take the Vellani's healing abilities for themselves, they would become nearly impossible to defeat." Across human space, the same conversation was happening everywhere. In bars, in homes, in government offices, people were talking about the Vellani. And the more they talked, the angrier they became. On the colony ship New Hope, Captain Alex Murphy was reading the reports when his first officer approached him. "Captain, we're getting volunteers, lots of them. People want to join any mission. To help the Vellani." Murphy was not surprised. Humans had a long history of standing up for others who could not defend themselves. It was part of who they were. How many volunteers? Over 2,000 so far. And it's growing. Back on Terra Prime, Intelligence Officer Ryan Bell was working in a secure facility. His job was to monitor alien communications. What he found in the Draconis networks made him call his supervisor immediately. "Sir, you need to see this. I've broken into some Draconis military communications. The Vellani situation is worse than we thought." The messages Ryan had decoded were horrifying. The Draconis were not just conquering the Vellani homeworld. They had built processing facilities. They were keeping Vellani alive and using machines to extract their healing properties. The reports described rows of Vellani connected to tubes and wires. The aliens were being kept barely alive while their blood and organs were harvested. The Draconis were planning to use these healing abilities to create super soldiers. "Get this to the president immediately," his supervisor ordered. President Adams received the intelligence report while she was meeting with her cabinet. She read it twice and put it down with shaking hands. "This changes everything," she said. Quietly, "We're not just talking about a military conquest anymore. This is genocide with torture." Secretary of Defense Carol Young spoke up. "Madam President, if we act, we'll be going against the Galactic Council. We could face sanctions, or worse." President Adams stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see protesters gathering in the plaza. They carried signs demanding action to save the Vellani. "Carol, let me ask you something. What would you want aliens to do if Earth was under attack? If human children were being tortured for their body parts?" The room was quiet. The answer is simple. You would want them to help, regardless of politics or consequences. The president turned back to face her cabinet. "I'm authorizing military action to assist the Vellani." Admiral Martinez felt his heart skip a beat. "Ma'am, how much military action?" "All of it, Sam. I want every available ship. I want volunteers from every colony. I want the largest human fleet ever assembled." Within hours of the president's announcement, the response was overwhelming. Ships from across human space began moving toward assembly points. Military vessels, cargo ships, mining vessels, even. Luxury yachts were being converted for War. Captain Tony Garcia was a fighter pilot on the carrier UECC Hints. When he heard about the mission to save the Vellani, he immediately volunteered. "Why are you doing this?" asked his wingman lieutenant, Sue Walsh. "These aliens are not our people." Tony looked at the picture of his daughter on his control panel. "Sue, what if it was my little girl being tortured? What if it was your family? Would you want aliens to help them?" Sue nodded. "I would." "Then we help the Vellani, because helping others when they can't help themselves is what makes us human." Across the fleet, the same conversations were happening. Humans were volunteering not because they had to, but because they could not live with themselves if they did nothing. Major Chris Lewis was leading a special forces unit that would be responsible for ground operations. His soldiers were training for urban combat and rescue operations. "Listen up," he told his team. "We're going into a situation where we'll be outnumbered and outgunned. The enemy has been fighting wars for centuries. We're the new guys, but we have something they don't." "Understand." "What's that, sir?" asked Sergeant Helen Carter. "We're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. We're fighting for the idea that no one should suffer alone. That gives us strength they can't understand." As the human fleet assembled, word reached the Galactic Council. The other alien species were divided. Some supported human action. Others worried about the consequences of challenging the Draconis Empire. But the humans were not asking for permission anymore. They were acting on their own principles. The message was clear. Humanity would not stand by while innocents suffered. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Defiance, watching as more ships arrived every hour. He had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of vessels, all crewed by volunteers, all ready to risk everything for aliens they had never met. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we're receiving a message from the Draconis Empire. They're ordering us to stay out of their territory." Martinez looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them this. Humanity does not negotiate with those who torture the innocent. We're coming." The die was cast. The largest human fleet in history was about to challenge one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The outcome was uncertain, but the cause was just, and sometimes that was enough. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Vellani space 3 days later. What they saw made even the hardest soldiers feel sick. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES's Science, staring at the main screen. The Vellani homeworld was surrounded by massive Draconis ships. Huge platforms in orbit were shooting beams of energy down at the planet's surface. Even from space, they could see the fires burning across entire continents. "How many enemy ships?" Martinez asked his tactical officer. "Over 3,000, sir. Battle cruisers, destroyers, and troop transports. They have us outnumbered 10-1. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication system from the UES Intrepid. "Admiral, we're detecting massive cargo ships leaving the planet. They're loaded with Vellani prisoners." Martinez felt his anger growing. The Draconis were not just conquering the Vellani. They were stealing them like property. On the Draconis command ship, Commander Vexter was looking at reports of the human fleet. He was a large reptilian creature with scales like armor and eyes like a snake. His species had been conquering other worlds for over 1,000 years. "How many human ships?" he asked his second-in-command. "Only 400, Commander. Their technology appears primitive. They should not be a threat to our forces." Vexter laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Humans. We have heard of them. A young species that thinks they can challenge the mighty Draconis Empire. This will be good practice for our warriors." He was about to learn that underestimating humans was a deadly mistake. Admiral Martinez called a meeting of all ship captains. The holographic conference room was filled with the faces of determined men and women from across human space. "People," Martinez began, "what we're seeing down there is not just war. It's evil. The Draconis are torturing an entire species for their own gain. We're here to stop that." Captain Morrison spoke up. "Admiral, our intelligence shows the Draconis have processing facilities on the planet's surface. They're keeping Valani alive in horrible conditions while they extract their healing abilities." The room was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "Our primary mission is to rescue as many Valani as possible," Martinez continued. "Secondary mission is to destroy the Draconis' ability to harvest them. This is not going to be easy. They outnumber us badly." Captain Alex Murphy raised his hand. "Admiral, what's our tactical approach?" Martinez smiled grimly. "We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Human warfare." The Draconis had always won their battles through superior numbers and brute force. Their tactics were simple: overwhelm the enemy with massive ships and heavy weapons. It had worked for centuries, but humans fought differently. The first wave of human ships moved in fast and low, using the planet's gravity to accelerate. Captain Morrison led the attack in the UES Vengeance, a strike cruiser designed for quick hits. "All fighters launch," Morrison ordered. "Target the orbital platforms first. We need to stop the bombardment." Fighter pilot Tony Garcia led his squadron toward the massive Draconis platforms. His ship was small and fast compared to the huge alien vessels. "Angel Squadron, this is Angel Leader," he called over the radio. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people who can't fight back. Make every shot count." The human fighters attacked in coordinated groups, something the Draconis had never seen before. Instead of random dogfights, the humans worked together like wolves hunting. They would gang up on one enemy ship, destroy it quickly, then move to the next target. On the UES Defiance, Weapons Officer Lieutenant Dan Foster was coordinating the main battle. "Admiral, enemy battle group moving to intercept 20 heavy cruisers. Target their lead ship with everything we have," Martinez ordered. The human ships used weapons the Draconis had never encountered. Instead of energy beams, the humans fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The kinetic weapons punched through Draconis shields like they were paper. Commander Vexter watched in shock as his lead cruiser exploded from a single human salvo. "What kind of weapons are those?" "They appear to be firing solid metal at extreme velocities, Commander. Our shields are not designed to stop physical projectiles." For the first time in his military career, Vexter felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. Meanwhile, human Marines led by Colonel Jack Stone were preparing for landing operations. Their job was to reach the surface and rescue Valani prisoners from the processing facilities. "Listen up, Marines," Stone told his soldiers as they prepared their drop pods. "What we're going to see down there will make you angry. Use that anger. Channel it. But don't let it control you. We're not here for revenge. We're here to save lives." The drop pods launched from the human ships like meteors falling toward the planet. The Draconis tried to shoot them down, but the pods were small and fast. Most made it through. On the planet's surface, the Marines found a nightmare. The Draconis had built huge facilities where Valani were kept in small cells, connected to machines. That drained their blood and other fluids. The aliens were barely alive, kept conscious so their healing abilities would remain active. Sergeant Helen Carter was the first to enter one of the facilities. What she saw made her stomach turn. Rows of Valani, including children, were hooked up to tubes and wires. Their large, gentle eyes looked at her with a mixture of hope and despair. "Colonel, you need to see this," she called on her radio. "It's worse than we thought." Colonel Stone arrived quickly. When he saw the processing facility, His face became hard as stone. Get them out. All of them, now. The Marines worked quickly to free the Vellani prisoners. Many were too weak to walk. The humans carried them to evacuation points, where medical. Teams were waiting. Dr. Peter Young was one of the medical officers treating the rescued Vellani. He had seen combat injuries before, but this was different. These aliens had been systematically tortured for months. How many can we save? Asked Nurse Helen Carter as she helped carry a young Vellani to a medical transport. All of them, Dr. Young said firmly. We don't leave anyone behind. Back in space, the battle was turning in humanity's favor. The human ships moved faster and hit harder than the Draconis expected. But the aliens had one advantage: numbers. Admiral, called the tactical officer. Enemy reinforcements arriving. Looks like their main battle fleet. Martinez looked at the screen. Over 1,000 fresh Draconis ships were jumping into the system. Even with their tactical advantages, the humans were about to be overwhelmed. Captain Morrison's voice came over the radio from the surface. Admiral, we've found something. The Vellani have hidden weapons in underground bunkers. Ancient stuff, but powerful. Can you activate them? Working on it. The Vellani elders say these weapons were built for a war thousands of years ago, then buried when they chose peace. But they might still work. On the planet's surface, Elder Velkaran was weak but determined. He was one of the last Vellani leaders still alive. The humans had rescued him from a processing facility where he had been tortured for weeks. Human friend, he said to Colonel Stone in his broken English, our people built great weapons long ago. We hid them because we chose peace. But peace did not save us from the Draconis. Where are these weapons? Stone asked. Deep caves, sealed for 3,000 years. But if you help us open them, we can fight back. Stone looked at the alien elder with respect. Despite everything he had suffered, Velkaran was ready to fight for his people. Show us the way. As human and Vellani forces worked together to unlock the ancient weapons, the space battle continued. Human fighters continued their hit-and-run attacks, but they were taking heavy losses. Lieutenant Sue Walsh was Tony Garcia's wingman. When she saw 3 Draconis fighters closing in on a damaged human transport, she made a decision. Angel leader? This is Angel 2. I'm going to ram those fighters. Get that transport out of here. Sue, no. There has to be another way. Tell my family I died doing what was right, she said, then turned her fighter toward the enemy ships. The explosion took out all 3 Draconis fighters and saved the transport full of rescued Vellani children. Tony Garcia felt tears in his eyes, but he kept fighting. Sue had died to save alien children she had never met. That was what it meant to be human. On the surface, the ancient Vellani weapons were finally activated. They rose from underground bunkers like metal mountains. The weapons were thousands of years old, but they had been built to last. Colonel, said the Vellani elder, these weapons can destroy ships in orbit, but we need your people to help us aim them. Stone smiled grimly. Elder, it would be our honor. The ancient weapons fired beams of pure energy into space. The Draconis ships, focused on fighting the human fleet, were caught completely by surprise. Dozens of their largest ships were destroyed in the first salvo. Commander Vexter watched, his fleet being torn apart by weapons he had never seen before. The humans were not just fighting with their own ships. They had awakened something that had been sleeping for millennia. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The human tactics are too. Unpredictable. And now the planet itself is fighting back. For the first time in Draconis history, Vexter considered retreat. But his pride would not let him admit defeat to a species he had thought was primitive. That pride was about to cost him everything. The battle for Vellani Prime had been raging for 6 days. The humans had saved thousands of Villani prisoners, but the cost was terrible. Nearly 40% of the human fleet had been destroyed or badly damaged. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, looking at the casualty reports. Good people were dying every hour. Young pilots like Sue Walsh, brave Marines like Sergeant Mike Johnson, engineers like Chief Danny Martinez's own son. The names kept growing. "Admiral," said his communications officer, "we're getting a priority message from Earth. President Adams wants to speak with you." The president's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but her voice was strong. "Sam, the whole galaxy is watching this battle. Some alien species are supporting us. Others are demanding we withdraw. The Galactic Council is threatening sanctions against Earth. Ma'am, we can't stop now. We've rescued over 15,000 Villani, but there are still more in the processing facilities. If we leave, the Draconis will kill them all." President Adams nodded. "I understand. But Sam, I need you to know something. The Draconis Empire has sent their doomed fleets to the system. Intelligence says they're bringing their most elite forces." Martinez felt his heart sink. The doomed fleets were legendary. They had never lost a battle in 500 years of warfare. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours. After the call ended, Martinez called a meeting of his remaining ship captains. Many faces that had been in the first meeting were gone now. Captain Lisa Turner had been killed when her ship was destroyed, saving a Villani transport. Commander Bob Wright had died leading a desperate attack on a Draconis processing ship. "People," Martinez began, "we have 18 hours before the Draconis. Bring their best forces to this system. We can retreat now and save what's left of our fleet. Or we can stay and finish what we started." Captain Morrison spoke first. "Admiral, I've been to the processing facilities. I've seen what the Draconis are doing to the Villani. If we leave, every alien we haven't rescued yet will die in agony." Captain Alex Murphy nodded. "Jake's right. We came here to stop evil. We don't stop until the job is done." One by one, every remaining captain agreed. They would fight to the end. On the planet's surface, the rescue operations continued. Major Chris Lewis was leading his special forces through the underground tunnels where the Draconis had built their worst facilities. What they found there would haunt them forever. "Jesus," whispered Corporal Tim Adams as they entered a chamber full of Villani children connected to extraction machines. "How can anyone do this to kids?" "Because they don't see them as people," Lewis replied grimly. "They see them as resources. That's what we're fighting against." The Marines worked carefully to disconnect the children from the machines. Many were barely alive. Dr. Peter Young and his medical team worked around the clock to save them. "Doctor," asked Nurse Sarah Kim, "will these children recover?" Dr. Young looked at a young Villani who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. In human terms, the child's large eyes looked at him with trust, even after everything that had happened. "Some will," he said, "but they'll carry the scars forever. That's why this matters. That's why we can't let this happen again." Meanwhile, Elder Vel Karan was working with human engineers to repair and upgrade the ancient Villani weapons. Despite his injuries from months of torture, he refused to rest. "Elder," said Engineer Bill Foster, "you should be in the medical facility recovering." Vel Karan shook his head. "My people are still suffering. I will not rest while even one Villani remains." In Draconis' hands, the old alien's determination inspired the humans working with him. If he could keep fighting after everything he had endured, so could they. The ancient weapons were getting stronger. Human technology combined with Villani engineering was creating something new and powerful. But would it be enough against the doomed fleets? In space, the remaining human ships were preparing for the final battle. Fighter pilot Tony Garcia was in his cockpit, looking at a picture of his daughter. He had been fighting for almost a week with little sleep. His squadron had started with 24 pilots. Now only 8 were left. "Angel Squadron," he called over the radio. "This is Angel Leader. In a few hours, we're going to face the best. The Draconis have. Some of us won't make it home. But remember why we're here. We're fighting so that no child, human or alien, has to suffer like the Valani children we've rescued." The pilots acknowledged. They were scared, but they were ready. Commander. Vexter was aboard his command ship, waiting for the doomed fleets to arrive. He had lost over half his forces to the humans and their strange tactics. His reputation was ruined. If he didn't win this battle, he would be executed for failure. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the doomed fleet is arriving." Vexter watched as massive black ships appeared in the system. These were not ordinary Draconis vessels. They were huge, heavily armed, and crewed by the Empire's best warriors. The shadow-scale elite, soldiers who had never known defeat. "Finally," Vexter growled. "Now the humans will see what real power looks like." But he was about to discover that humans had been holding back their own surprises as the doomed fleet moved into attack position. Admiral Martinez received an unexpected message. "Admiral," his communications officer said with excitement, "we're getting signals from across the galaxy. Other species are sending ships to help us." On the main screen, new ships began appearing. They were not human designs. Some were crystalline, structures from the Altair Collective. Others were organic-looking vessels from the Zephyr Alliance. Even some rogue Draconis ships arrived, their crews disgusted by their Empire's actions. "Admiral Martinez," came a voice over the radio. "This is Captain Zorthake of the Altair cruiser Crystal Dawn. We have come to assist in the rescue of the Valani." Martinez felt hope for the first time in days. "Captain Zorthake, welcome to the fight." But the alien reinforcements were still outnumbered by the doomed fleet. The final battle would be desperate. On the planet's surface, Colonel Stone was leading a final assault on the largest processing facility. Intelligence suggested that over 1,000 Velani were being held there, including most of the species' remaining leaders. "Marines," Stone told his soldiers as they prepared for the attack, "this is it. After this facility, we'll have rescued everyone we can find. But the Draconis won't give them up easily. They'll fight to the death to keep their prizes." The facility was heavily defended. Draconis shadow-scale warriors, the Empire's elite soldiers, were waiting inside. These aliens were bred for war, genetically enhanced to be faster and stronger than normal Draconis. The battle was brutal. Human Marines fought room by room against enemies who were physically superior in every way. But the humans had something the Shadow Scales didn't understand. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves. Sergeant Helen Carter led her squad into a chamber where dozens of Valani elders were being tortured. When she saw the condition they were in, her anger gave her strength she didn't know she had. "You want them?" She shouted at the Shadow Scale warriors blocking her path. "You'll have to go through us first." The firefight was intense. Carter's squad was outnumbered 3-1, but they fought with the fury of people who had seen too much evil. One by one, the Shadow Scales fell. When the smoke cleared, Carter was wounded but alive. The Valani elders were safe. "Sergeant," whispered one of the elders in broken English, "why do you humans fight so hard for us? We are not your people." Carter looked at the old alien's gentle face and saw the same kindness she saw in her own grandmother's eyes. "Because suffering is suffering," she said simply, "and no one should suffer alone." As the ground battle raged, the space battle was about to begin. The doomed fleet was moving into position, their black ships like a plague spreading across the stars. Admiral Martinez looked at his mixed fleet of human ships and alien volunteers. They were still outnumbered, but they were not alone anymore. "All ships," he broadcast, "this is our final stand. We came here to save innocent people from torture and death. We've rescued thousands, but our job isn't finished. The enemy thinks their elite forces will break us. They're wrong. Today we show the galaxy what happens when good people stand together against evil." The Doom fleet attacked in perfect formation. Their tactics were flawless, their weapons devastating. But they had never fought an enemy like this before. Humans working alongside other species, all united by a common cause. Tony Garcia led his remaining fighters in one last desperate attack. His target was the Doom fleet's command ship, a massive vessel protected by layers of shields and armor. "Angel, Squadron, follow me in. We're going to punch a hole for the capital ships." The human fighters dove toward the enemy command ship like hawks attacking a giant. The Draconis defenders were ready for them, but Garcia had learned something during the long battle. The enemy was predictable. They followed patterns. Humans didn't. Instead of attacking the command ship directly, Garcia's squadron suddenly split up and attacked the escort vessels. The move surprised the Draconis so much that their formation broke apart. That was the opening Admiral Martinez had been waiting for. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel. Hit them with everything we have." The combined human and alien fleet focused their attacks on a single target. Energy beams, kinetic weapons, and exotic alien technologies all struck. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Villani Prime. The planet was slowly healing, but the scars would last forever. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the memorial garden that had been built near the main Villani city. Thousands of names were carved into black stone walls. Human names. Names of people who had died to save a species they had never met before. Elder Velkaran approached slowly. The old Villani was recovering well, but he would always walk with a limp from his time in the processing facilities. "Captain Morrison," the elder said in his much improved English, "I come here every day to read the names. I want to remember. Every human who died for my people." Morrison nodded. "They would be honored to know that, Elder. I have learned all their stories. Sue Walsh, the pilot who crashed her ship to save our children. Lisa Turner, the captain who sacrificed her vessel to protect our transport ships. Danny Martinez, the young engineer who died fixing our ancient weapons." The elder's voice was heavy, with emotion. "Captain, how do we repay such sacrifice?" Morrison looked at the Villani children playing in the rebuilt city. They were healthy and happy, their natural healing abilities slowly repairing the damage done by the Draconis torture. "Machines. You already have, Elder. You're alive. Your people are free. That's payment enough." The political aftermath of the Villani crisis had changed the galaxy forever. The Draconis Empire had been forced to sign the Galactic Freedom Accords, banning the enslavement and torture of any sentient species. Other alien governments had joined the agreement, creating a new standard for civilized behavior. President Lavra Adams sat in her office on Earth, reading reports from across human space. The reaction to humanity's actions had been mixed. Some alien species praised humans as heroes. Others worried about human military power and willingness to intervene in alien affairs. "Madam President," her aide said, "the Altair Collective is requesting a formal alliance. They want to join with us in protecting other species from aggression." Adam smiled. "Schedule a meeting. It looks like we're not going to be alone in this anymore." The humans had not sought to become galactic protectors, but that's what they had become. Word of their actions at Villani Prime had spread to every corner of known space. Other oppressed peoples were looking to humanity for help. Admiral Martinez, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, was overseeing the creation of the new Galactic Defense Initiative. It was a coalition of species dedicated to preventing future atrocities like the one committed against the Valani. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we have requests for assistance from 14 different species. The Cathara system is under attack by raiders. The Meridian colonies are being threatened by slavers. The Epsilon sector." Martinez held up his hand. "I get the picture. How many ships do we have available?" "The human contribution is 300 vessels. Our allies are providing another 200. It was a start, but Martinez knew it wouldn't be enough. The galaxy was a big place, and there were many bullies like the Draconis Empire. On Valani Prime, the transformation was remarkable. The peaceful aliens had not abandoned their philosophy of nonviolence, but they had learned the value of being prepared. With human help, they were building defense systems that would protect them from future attacks. Dr. Amy Collins was working with Valani scientists to unlock the secrets of their healing abilities. Not to exploit them as the Draconis had tried to do, but to help them share their gifts with others who needed healing. "Dr. Collins," said Velshawn, a young Valani scientist, "we want to establish healing centers throughout the galaxy. Places where any species can come for medical help." Collins smiled. "That's a wonderful idea. The galaxy needs more healing and less fighting." But even as the Valani worked on peaceful projects, they understood that sometimes fighting was necessary. To protect the innocent. Captain Tony Garcia had survived the battle, but many of his friends had not. He now commanded a squadron of mixed human and alien pilots, all dedicated to protecting peaceful species from aggression. His wingman was a young Altair named Christic, whose people had joined the fight during the final battle. "Commander Garcia," Christic said over the radio, "I have been studying human military history. Your species has a remarkable ability to unite against injustice." Garcia thought about his fallen friends, especially Sue Walsh, who had died saving Delani children. "Christic, we learned something important a long time ago. Evil wins when good people do nothing, so we choose to do something." The lessons of Valani Prime were being taught in schools across human space. Children learned about the importance of standing up for others, even when it was dangerous or costly. 8-year-old Emma Garcia, Tony's daughter, was giving a presentation to her class about the Valani rescue. "My daddy says that being human means helping people who can't help themselves," she told her classmates. "It doesn't matter if they look different from us or come from another planet. If they need help, we help them." Her teacher, Mrs. Sarah Johnson, smiled. The next generation was learning the right lessons. Meanwhile, the Draconis Empire was dealing with the consequences of their defeat. Many of their subject species had rebelled, inspired by the human example. The Empire was fracturing as oppressed. Peoples fought for their freedom. Former Commander Vexthur's replacement, General Crexmore, was meeting with his war council. "The humans have destroyed everything we built," one of his advisors complained. "Half our territory is in rebellion." Crexmore was smarter than his predecessor. "Perhaps it's time we learned from them instead of fighting them." "You mean surrender?" "I mean evolve. The galaxy is changing. We can change with it, or we can die like the old ways." It was a radical idea for the Draconis, but some were beginning to listen. Back on Earth, Ryan Bell was monitoring communications across the galaxy. His job had changed from intelligence gathering to early warning. He was looking for signs of future conflicts that might require intervention. "Sir," he called to his supervisor, "I'm picking up distress signals from the Cathara system." "Looks like the raiders are back." His supervisor nodded. "Send it to Fleet Command. Looks like the Galactic Defense Initiative is about to get its first real test." Admiral Martinez received the report an hour later. The Cathara were a peaceful trading species being attacked by pirates who wanted to enslave them. It was the Valani situation all over again, just on a smaller scale. "How many ships can we deploy?" he asked his staff. 40 human vessels. 20 from our allies. Should be enough to handle pirates? Martinez nodded. Send them out. And make sure the pirates know who they're dealing with. Broadcast this message. This is the Galactic Defense Initiative. Cease your attacks immediately or face the consequences. The response from the pirates was predictable. They laughed at the warning and continued their raids. That was their last mistake. The GDI fleet arrived at Cathara 3 days later. The pirates had expected easy prey. Instead, they found themselves facing the combined forces of multiple species, all trained in human tactics and united by a common cause. The battle was over in 6 hours. The pirates were either captured or destroyed. The Cathara were safe. Word of the victory spread quickly. The message was clear. The galaxy now had protectors who would respond to calls for help. On Velani Prime, Elder Velkaran was holding a ceremony to commemorate the 6-month anniversary of their liberation. Representatives from dozens of species had come to pay their respects. 6 months ago, the elder said to the assembled crowd, my people faced extinction. We cried out for help, not knowing if anyone would hear us. But humanity heard our cry, and they answered with their blood and their lives. He gestured to the memorial wall with its thousands of names. These humans did not die for glory or conquest. They died because they believed that freedom belongs to all thinking beings. They died because they could not stand to see innocence suffer. The crowd was silent, remembering the sacrifice. Today, we are not just Velani and humans and Altaires, and all the other species represented here. Today, we are all citizens of a galaxy that has learned to protect its children. Today, we are all inheritors of the legacy these heroes left us. Captain Morrison was in the crowd, listening to the elder's words. He thought about all the friends he had lost in the battle. They had paid the ultimate price, but their sacrifice had meaning. After the ceremony, Morrison walked through the rebuilt city. Velani children played in parks that had been battlefields. Healing centers provided care to anyone who needed it. The scars were still there, but life was growing around them. His communicator chimed. It was Admiral Martinez. Jake, we're getting another distress call. The Meridian colonies are under attack by slavers. How soon can the Intrepid be ready to deploy? Morrison looked at the peaceful scene around him, then at the memorial wall in the distance. The names of his fallen friends seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. We'll be ready in 6 hours, Admiral. The Intrepid and her crew will answer the call. As he walked back to his ship, Morrison thought about what humanity had become. They were no longer just explorers or traders or colonists. They had become something more important. They had become the voice that answered when someone cried for help. They had become the fury that rose when innocents were threatened. They had become the hope that evil would not go unchallenged. UES Intrepid lifted off from Valani Prime as the sun was setting. Other ships, J,